Welcome to Bedtime Confessions. Welcome back to this week's episode of Bedtime Confessions. In today's video, we're going to talk about a very important topic that I'm sure every one of us has experienced at least once, is imposter syndrome. And more specifically, imposter syndrome is an illusion. Let's dive right into it, shall we? The reason why imposter syndrome is an illusion is because it's a coping mechanism that your brain is using so that it protects you from novelty. So novelty equals anything new, anything that's unfamiliar to the brain. And that is because when you're trying to break out of imposter syndrome or you're trying to do something new for yourself, imagine like you're going for a bigger role in a company, or you're trying a new sport, or you're trying a new hobby, like you're a beginner or something, or you're trying to venture outside of a field that you're not comfortable with yet, but you really want to. Your brain has to adapt to a new environment, to a new habit, to new people, but at its core, your brain needs to adapt to a new identity, because the person that you will become in that new environment, in that new habit, in that new workplace, or whatever it is that you're going into, your brain has to figure out how to function in that new environment. And that means that the person that you were a few months before that decision to change is not the person that you're going to be in a few months after the change. And so your brain is feeling like, oh my gosh, how are we going to adapt to this new identity? Like, who are we now? Because you're not fully into that new person, but you're not the person that you used to be a few weeks ago. And so your brain has to adapt to this whole new identity. And that's where imposter syndrome comes in, because you feel like you're an imposter because you haven't familiarized yourself with this new identity yet. But you're not the person that you used to be either. So you're kind of in this in between. And so within this in between, you might feel imposter syndrome. Again, this is not based in science. This is just my personal experience of imposter syndrome and how I experience imposter syndrome. And I think that for me, in my own personal experience, I always felt imposter syndrome in situations where I was about to step into a new social circle that I didn't fully fit in yet. And I felt like, yes, I was really excited to be in that circle. And I felt like I deserved it. But because my mind was being expanded with this new opportunity, it wasn't used to it yet. And therefore, that's where imposter syndrome came into the picture. So, your brain is basically using imposter syndrome to protect you from novelty so that you feel discouraged to go and pursue that new opportunity or that new environment, because your brain just not used to it. And it's not, don't be mean to your brain and don't blame your brain for it. It's just trying to protect you. But that's why imposter syndrome is an illusion. So that was the first reason why you might not want to trust imposter syndrome. Next, I want to address that imposter syndrome is not something that you're the only person feeling. Like, so many people, you can't even comprehend how many people do feel imposter syndrome in all fields, all levels of the workplace, in any positions. There are so many more people than you think that are experiencing imposter syndrome. If you feel imposter syndrome, just trust me when I say it is so normal and it's not talked enough. And I think that's the problem. It's like sometimes when we see people in power and see people in bigger positions, we might idolize them, or we might give them we might see them as this huge figure of authority. But we need to remember at its core, these are just people. There are people that started from where you are right now. They were once a beginner, and then they slowly moved up through the corporate ladder, through different opportunities, through growth, their own personal growth and development. But they were where you are right now. So when you're thinking about joining a workplace or joining an environment where you're like, oh, but are they going to take me seriously? Are they going to respect me, whatever you're playing in your mind, just remember that these people were where you were a few months, years, how many long ago. They were in your position. So they understand what it feels like to be where you are. And when you enter a new environment with people that already been in that environment for so long, you shouldn't set that expectations that you should fit in right away, because it's not expected of you. Of course you're new. Of course you're going to take a little time to adjust and adapt. Of course you're going to not fit right away, or of course you're not going to find your way around the place like super easily. Like, no one in their right mind would expect you to have it all figured out on your day one. So if you have that anxiety that, for example, on the first day, that you feel like that pressure of having it all figured out, just take a deep breath and release it, because nobody expects you to have it all figured out. Because it would be crazy. It would be crazy to think that in your first day, like, you have it all figured out. And to add to that, I want to add that feeling imposter syndrome does not mean you're not capable. Because if you weren't capable, you wouldn't get the opportunity in the first place. For example, for a job, you wouldn't be hired in the first place if you weren't able to do it. Or if you got an opportunity from someone, they think that you're capable of handling it. If you have the desire to do something, a goal, a project, or whatever it is, then deep down you know you are capable of achieving it. So don't think that imposter syndromes is because you're not capable. It's so far from the truth, because if you were truly incapable, you wouldn't have the need or the opportunity in the first place. So you have to trust yourself, trust your skills, your capacity to handle whatever is coming forward, and then take it one step at a time. And this applies to everything. Like, everything is just one step each time that you take, and then you move forward, right? Because every job is taught, every skill is acquired, everything is through learning. So that means that anything that you want to do, or anything that you have to do for work, for a project, whatever, it's something that you can be taught, or you can learn by yourself, or that in some way, shape, or form you can manage. Because again, the opportunity wouldn't be there if you weren't able to accomplish whatever you have to accomplish. Finally, to my last point, what the imposter syndrome is basically fear talking. Is your fear of not being able to handle it, but the thing is that fear is not equal to incompetence. So it's kind of similar to my point of imposter syndrome doesn't mean you're incapable. It just means that right now you're stretching past your comfort zone, and that why it feels so maybe anxiety inducing, or it feels so scary, because it's like you're stepping into a whole new world, or a whole new opportunity, or a whole new space where you're not familiar with yet, or you're not acquainted with yet, and that's you'll have to adapt for a little bit. But that's okay. That's just change. And change is a constant in life. But it's just you stretching past your comfort zone. And yes, your brain might not like it, but it's how you grow and how you evolve and how you just have fun in life. It's like if you step out of that comfort zone, then you go further and you have more opportunities, you have more experiences, you have more fun in general, because that's the whole point of life, is to keep growing and to keep challenging yourself, because without any challenge, well, life is pretty boring. Let me just tell you that. Because if you don't have any obstacle and everything was easy and handed to you, would you feel bored? I personally would. So imposter syndrome is just fear disguised as, or you're not good enough, or you're not able to do this, or you shouldn't be here. No. Because you are worthy of every room and every table you sit at. Because otherwise, let me repeat myself again, you wouldn't have the opportunity to be there in the first place. So if you're invited into rooms where you feel like you don't deserve to be there, just don't trust those thoughts, those negative thoughts about yourself, because they are wrong. Just, you know what? In that case, just let people tell you you don't deserve to be there. Don't automatically assume that you're not good enough or that you don't deserve to be there. Let other people tell you that, because you should believe in yourself and you should stop thinking that you don't have a place at that table, because you do. Remove those negative thoughts, and if you really want to be convinced that you shouldn't be there, wait for someone else to tell you. Until then, just keep walking forward. I want to put a positive spin on imposter syndrome, because I think that when you do have imposter syndrome, it means that you have hidden potential and that there's just this little genius inside of you that's trying to come out, and it's basically fighting your current identity so that it can come out and replace that person. So right now, it's like the imposter syndrome effect is basically your guard up, trying to keep that little genius hidden inside of you so that you don't have to change and adapt to this new genius, but instead keep the identity of the imposter syndrome. And that little genius is just trying to come out, but it's fighting the imposter syndrome. It's fighting all the battles of negative thinking, everything else, so that you can express who you can become in this world. So let your little genius come out so that you can fully experience who you could be at your best and in your most thriving state. And then my last point that I want to acknowledge is that with that little genius and who you are as a person, you're so unique and you bring so much to the table and just who you are. And the point I want to make is that you don't realize that you are actually someone else's inspiration. Trust me when I say this, everyone on this earth, okay, let's put aside like the bad people, but most people, you included, have silent admirers. And I'm not saying like silent admirers in terms of like romance. Like, yes, let's put the romance aside here as well, because romance is not the topic. But you have silent admirers in terms of someone out there looks at you or looks at the way you're living your life and finds inspiration for their own life, and they might steal some of the ways you're living your life or the ways you're thinking or some of the qualities that you have, and they want that for themselves. Don't let imposter syndrome keep you away from the world, because you need to be someone else's inspiration, because you have the capacity and the criteria to be someone else's inspiration, whether it's through how you live, how you think, how you act, how you work, however it is, how kind you are. There is always someone out there that can see you as inspiration to improve their own lives. And that's just beautiful. Why would you keep yourself hidden or keep that little genius inside of you when you can help just by being yourself to inspire other people to improve their own life? Isn't that wonderful to think of? That if you push past that imposter syndrome illusion, you can actually make a huge difference by just being yourself and just acquiring the skills that you want to acquire, live the life that you want to live, and trying to achieve your highest potential. And then as a result and a consequence, you get to help other people and influence their decisions to be a better person. So yes, imposter syndrome is scary, and it's there. And let me tell you a story of my own personal imposter syndrome. I would get imposter syndrome here and there, but there was one specific moment where I actually physically felt like anxious, where it wasn't a panic attack, it was close, but I felt so anxious because of imposter syndrome. So at uni, there's a program that they created in my last year that's called the Dean Circle, which is basically a circle of student leaders on campus, and they were only selecting 20 people. So I went through the entire interview process, and I got accepted as one of the 20 student leaders. And so we had our first meetup where we're going to meet everyone. And knowing that everyone on that group is a student leader and someone that's doing great contribution on the campus, I knew I was going to be impressed by who they chose, because there's so many great students on campus that do incredible work. And so right before the first meetup, I went to the bathroom, like close to the room, and in my mind, all I could think was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Like, am I good enough? Like, do I deserve to be there? Like, I'm nothing like compared to these other people that are doing so much more on campus than I am. And I was devaluing all the work that I've contributed to my campus to change physical activity, because I thought that the work that other students were doing about social issues, activism, student rights, it felt like their missions were so much more important and valuable than my mission of improving physical activity and making physical activity a priority on campus. And so I was there in the bathroom. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like how can I compete with these people? Like how can I be sitting next to someone that's doing such incredible work? Like I don't deserve to be there." But then I suck it up. I went into that room, I sat down, and then I was like, I do belong there. I shouldn't talk about myself that way. I deserve to be there. I am capable and I am as equal as the other person in that room. So at the end of the program, I felt like, yeah, I actually did deserve to be there. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then now looking back, I'm like, why would I ever think that the work I'm doing is not valuable? Because it doesn't mean like what you're doing, whatever you're doing, whether big or small, if it's contributing to a community, to your own personal growth, to helping a friend, a family member, whoever it is, everything is valuable. It doesn't matter if you're changing the world or not, or just changing your life. Everything has value, and I think it's time to stop comparing accomplishment and successes on how big they are, but just by the fact that we're just doing it. Just the fact that we're doing it should be enough. And so I'm just going to leave you with that. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, know that is just fear talking and your brain trying to cope with the new identity you're going to inherit from that change, and that everything can be taught and learned and acquired. So if you feel that you don't have the skills yet, you can always gain those skills, and you deserve to be in that room, at that table, in that seat, wherever you want to be, you deserve to be. So don't let that illusion of imposter syndrome stop you, because you have potential and I want you to express it fully. I hope this video helped, and I hope that it helps you calm the nerves of imposter syndrome, because again, let me repeat myself because I love repeating myself. Imposter syndrome is an illusion. Okay, so I'm going to leave you at that, and I hope that you have a lovely evening or night, and I'm going to go to bed. Night. And then I'll see you in the next bedtime confession. Bye!